Now, I come to you as somebody who's been a Cam Newton fan over the past decade, as somebody that you guys have seen that have followed me a long time and subscribed to this channel, and if you haven't, you should too, and follow me on Twitter, which you should also do. You know that, I sometimes have defended Cam Newton and provided some context about some of the things. Like when I talk about Cam, to me, completion percentage isn't quite as important with him back in the prime and peak of his career as it maybe was with other guys, because you're trying to look at a guy that was, bringing many different facets to the game. He was an elite level runner with speed and obviously his tremendous size and power. But when you were throwing with Cam Newton, you weren't necessarily trying to dink and dunk. You were trying to take shots down the field. You were trying to make big plays happen in the passing game. So I could live with a guy like Cam Newton hovering, let's say, around a 59, 60% completion percentage, where other guys, I say, if they're not at 65%, they suck. Because the style of play is different. The game and the approach is different. And in 2020, I look at Cam and I say, I saw a guy that could still make things happen as a runner and largely needed to make things happen as a runner because his arm is shot. Some of you are going to look at the completion percentage and say, well, he completed 65% of his passes. He really wasn't that bad. Or you're going to point to, well, the Patriots receivers sucked, especially once Edelman was gone. They already didn't have much and they had even less, and skip, whoop-de-woo. But the reality is, Cam got pulled from a couple of different games for a reason. You can only blame these other mitigating factors and circumstances but so long. Right? Like, Cam is not Cam Newton anymore. He's just another guy with a name and reputation and a legacy from the previous decade. And we have to be realistic about that. We have to be honest about it here. Like, you couldn't watch him in 2020 and think that a guy that threw more interceptions than touchdown passes still had the magic touch. He doesn't. So it's not surprising at all to see that the New England Patriots stayed patient, sat put in the draft, and when it got to pick 15, Mac Jones was there, and they decided they were going to take Mac Jones, the quarterback from Alabama. It makes sense. Like, a lot of people were calling this move. A lot of people were thinking this could happen, thinking maybe even the Patriots would try to trade up. Just kind of thought process being is that he was probably a tremendous fit for what Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, likes to do in that system, and what Belichick likes and values out of his quarterbacks, talking about intellect and talking about accuracy and precision in the passing game. Like, it felt like a great fit for the organization, the player, etc. And looking at Cam, like I mentioned, already on the wrong side of 30, physical skills, especially with the flipper, starting to deteriorate, have deteriorated, and will only continue to deteriorate more. Like, after 2 decades of Tom Brady, they couldn't take it for granted. Like, you have to try and find that next guy, because that was the key to success for the Patriots for so long, was you knew you had Belichick, but you also knew you had Brady. And everything else just kind of fell in line afterwards, and that made up, first, frankly, some of the deficiencies of Bill Belichick, the general manager and shot caller with personnel, because he's such an otherworldly head coaching talent and coaching talent. And Brady, the GOAT of quarterbacks, like, you're talking about a dude that he was the pillar and he was the bedrock, he was the foundation of everything you did, and you knew if you had Tom Brady, he was going to help make others around him better, get guys to go to another level in terms of their talents and performance levels. So, you don't have that anymore, at least half of that picture. And we saw, based off of what happened in Tampa put some talent around Tom Brady and was still able to make some things happen, and they won a Super Bowl with him. So the pressure's on here in New England to find that next guy and not, kind of stick back at the bottom of that AFC East that they've dominated for so long. Like, Buffalo's not going anywhere with Josh Allen. If Zach Wilson could be that dude for the Jets, if Tua develops into that dude for the Dolphins, like, you're looking at the Patriots and you're saying, hey, if they wouldn't have drafted Mac Jones this year or some other young quarterback, like, they feel like the odd man out, and they really don't have much of a path forward in the future. Which brings me to the whole crux and the point of this conversation is, I like Cam. I've always liked Cam. I think he got a bad rap at times. I think he kind of played like a punk ass a little bit in the Super Bowl too, admittedly, a few years back. But I think he's a guy that is easy to dismiss at times. I think there are certain elements that lead to him getting unfair criticism that others would not face. But the reality is he's not that dude anymore. And New England already knows that, because if he was, they would have given him some massive long-term deal after this past season. They didn't. They brought him back, yes, but they didn't give him massive big-time money over several years because they knew what the truth was. They also drafted Mac Jones 15th because they also knew what the truth was. Cam was a bridge, a stopgap, and that's it. And now as you go into 2021, the New England Patriots only have one option, and that is that Mac Jones should be given every chance to compete for the job, and if it's anywhere close between him and Cam Newton, Mac Jones should absolutely be the day one starter for the New England Patriots. And some of you are going to say, well, wait a second. You had said in previous videos that, like, if Atlanta had drafted Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Mac Jones, you would support them sitting the young quarterback. What's the difference here? The difference here is that Matt Ryan is still playing at a really damn high level at the quarterback position in the NFL. He's somewhere between the top 6 to 10, 11 guy. Probably more in the 6 to 8 or 9 range. Like, Matt Ryan is really damn good. You know, franchise level, yes. Still with some years left on the table, yes. A little bit better help around him, we might view him a little differently as a borderline elite type of guy. So you can't sit there and say that a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance or a Mac Jones makes the Falcons better from day one. Like, there's a football reality there where you can then say, yes, they sit behind him, blah, blah, blah. It's like the Aaron Rodgers thing. People point to, well, you should always let your quarterback sit and wait. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years. Yeah, it was also fucking Brett Favre. That was the quarterback of the 90s, as a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, it's a really bad comparison when folks are saying, well, the Bears should sit Fields behind Andy Dalton because look at what happened with Mahomes and Alex Smith in Kansas City. Oh, yuck, yuck, until you realize Andy Reid is the offensive guru there in Kansas City. Matt Nagy was just along for the fucking ride. You have absolutely nothing to indicate that Matt Nagy could be that dude. Also, Alex Smith, going back to heading into that 2017 season, the Chiefs had a winning record every year that he was there, 3 seasons of 10-plus wins. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler during that time, but sure, he's comparable to Andy Dalton, who's been trashed the past couple of years. Like, context matters. And you know that Cam Newton's not franchise level anymore. If he was, the Patriots would have paid him franchise level money. So you've already made that statement and declaration based off of what you saw, what you know to be the facts. Then keep him there to mentor the young quarterback, but this absolutely needs to be Mac Jones' team now. He needs to be given every chance to win that job, and he needs to be given that job on day one. As he can bring accuracy, decision-making, field vision, and instincts as a pocket passer that Cam Newton just can't. Cam Newton can do different varied things, you know, in terms of arm strength, pure raw arm strength, not so much anymore. Because again, like I said, that flipper is flopped. But as a runner especially, yes, he could certainly do things that Mac Jones can't. But, you know, if you're Belichick, you're McDaniels, you're the Patriots organization, you saw what Cam meant for you last year. He kind of fell on the sword a little bit for you. And maybe your thought is, hey, now we'll have a full off season, we'll have full mini camps, full training camps, he'll be a little bit better. No, he's not really going to be. And even if you want to think, well, drafting Mac Jones will fight and inspire him. No, at the end of the day, you've now drafted Mac Jones in the middle of round 1. You made that decision because you think that he could be at least a franchise-level quarterback in the league. You think at worst he's a Kirk Cousins. At best, he could be another Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan played from day one in Atlanta in 2008, and if you remember, they made the fucking playoffs. Atlanta, did they ever look back and regret the decision to play him and start him right away from day one? Fuck no. Nor should the New England Patriots think about that. Well, he doesn't have a ton of experience. Well, he's not going to get more experience talking about Mac Jones sitting on the damn bench. You can't help the fact that he didn't have a shit ton of experience coming out of Alabama, but I'll tell you what, it's not always about the quantity of the experience, it's about the quality of the experience. And that dude had a phenomenal 2020 season. Yes, he had a lot of help and a lot of weapons and a lot of talent around him, but, you know, you could also argue that he was a part of that equation. And for my money, I thought, frankly, projected as a better NFL prospect than Tua ever did. Yeah, I'll say it and I'll stand behind it. So you've got to find out what Mac Jones can be. And the quicker way to do that, the best way to do that, and also take advantage of the rookie scale contract, is to play him day one. Because if you start him now and you start him for a year and a half or two and he looks like booty cheeks, you know then that you have to pivot and shift as an organization. You're going to make a big move for a big name quarterback in like free agency or the trade market, or you know that you have to get into position to be able to draft another young quarterback and start it over. All you do by sitting him behind Cam is delay the inevitable, delay the decision, delay the truth being exposed and realized. If Mac Jones gets hurt, that shit could have happened 2 years from now if he sat on the bench for 2 years and then comes in and plays. If he struggles, it's better to find out now how he can handle and deal with adversity. You can't sit there and coddle these kids. You can't sit there and hide everything from them. And again, the whole notion of sitting, watching, and learning is the best way, it's just ridiculous. Who thinks like that? People with a dated Bears football kind of mindset. Just generally, people still stuck in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like the college game has changed significantly in terms of quarterback position in the passing game, and the NFL, as a result, has kind of come down and mirrored the college approach and the college style and the college game. So it is not nearly the transition from college to the pros that it maybe was 20, 25 years ago when you were bringing quarterbacks that were running the wing T or the wishbone to fucking running a West Coast offense. It's not that different anymore. It's not the same level of leap. Best way to find out is to play these guys, period. You already know Cam is not that dude. And let's say, for example, that Mac Jones, you find out, hey, 6-8 games in, he's really struggling, he's really booty cheeks, but the Patriots aren't that bad, they feel like they have a chance. Like if you decide that you want to take the Flores to a route and bench him and bring in Cam, like you have the capability to do that now. What I would recommend, but you have the capability to do that. But to me, for the Patriots, there's no other option. You know Cam's not the guy. What you don't know is whether or not Mac Jones can be the guy. You think he can. You know Cam can't. Therefore, Mac Jones must be your day one starter in New England.